Welcome, fight fans, to Deep Waters, where we take a deeper dive into boxing's top stories. I'm George DiMatteis filling in for Jimmy Smith, and we got the champs, three fighters with the best nicknames in the business. We got Showtime, Shawn Porter. We got the Magic Man, Paulie Malignaggi, and the Fighting Collegian, Chris Algieri. And my nickname cannot be said over the air. We'll leave it at that. All right, Ryan Garcia. Well, he's been making headlines for all the wrong reasons, and now his actions have come back to bite him, especially in the eyes of the WBC. Mauricio Suleiman, the president of the WBC, has expelled Ryan Garcia from all WBC activity, saying on X, exercising my authority as president of the WBC, I am hereby expelling Ryan Garcia from any activity with our organization. We reject any form of discrimination. I fear for Ryan's well-being as he has declined multiple attempts for our help with mental health and substance abuse. This is coming off the heels of a social media live stream in which he went on an expletive-laden rant with many racial slurs. All right, Shawn, what should Ryan Garcia do in the future here? If you were advising him, what should he do in the future? Because he's had a lot, very turbulent history leading up to this point.
Listen to some advice. That's what my advice would be to Ryan Garcia, man. I had dinner with some folks yesterday. I'm out here in Anaheim. We had his brother Sean in the fighter meetings just yesterday, and this was before any of this even came out. He said, "Man, just pray for my brother," and that was before this even came out. He knew that knows the space, the place that his brother is in, and it really is, man. It's heartbreaking, and it's quite sad. I know the three of us champs on the line here, we're all gentlemen, and we really don't stand for disrespect. We don't really, Paulie used to come out the side of his neck with comments every now and then and get the crowd riled up and things of that nature, but never, at this capacity. So, the world that we're moving into now, the three of us on this line, this is something that we don't condone. We're not about this. And so, yeah, man, for me, it really saddens me. And if I had an opportunity to speak to him, I would just tell him to slow down and try to accept some advice and accept it humbly and try to move forward carefully. Last thing I'll say, he mentioned a couple of times on that stream that he was a god and he couldn't be touched. When I'm hearing things like that, that's the real uh-oh for me, because that means he's going to do some more damage before he starts to really get the help that he needs.
Yeah, Paulie, what do you make of this Ryan Garcia situation, and what can be done to help him, or at least to clean it up so that he can get back on a good track?
It's funny. Shawn mentioned a good point about, I used to have a very vocal mouth. I mean, I probably still do.
Yeah, you had a character. You had a lot of character, and I hate to put you in that box.
No, but I think I can better explain it if I use myself, at least the way I went about it. In a way, I was very reactive. I was a lot of times I would put myself in situations where I was going to react to something that was pissing me off, or something that was going to put me in a situation where I was going to say something off track, like coming out the side, Ryan has if there's any advice that I would give, it's that, Ryan also has this tendency to sort of react or rap, say, splurge, shoot, think out loud, and today you really can't think out loud. I think the best way to do it, as far as I figured out in my older age, is try not to put yourself in a situation where you're going to want to react to something that has pissed you off, or something that's going to make you react in that crazy way. Don't put yourself in those situations. Understand the kind of person you are, and so you can kind of avoid certain situations where then you'll react that way, or you'll have that kind of reaction, and so on and so forth. I think that's the sort of the best way to do it. It's what I found. It's what I found that worked for me as I get older. Honestly, we're all susceptible to certain weaknesses, right? And I don't know. I don't necessarily think that speaking your mind is always a weakness, but there are times where it's probably certain things better left unsaid. John, I know you're biblical. There's one thing in the Bible, I think it's in Colossians, where it said your words spoken with salt, seasoned with salt. So it's basically, it's not what you say. Sometimes it's how you say it. And I'm always trying to learn that a little bit better. And, you can disagree or agree with certain things, but sometimes you got to season your words with salt a little bit, because I think you catch more bees with honey when it comes to disagreements. And that's sometimes when we're emotional and we're young, especially, we don't always get that part, and so it's something that I still continue to battle every day. It's something that I think Ryan will probably battle every day, but it's also something that you have to have the learning experience to then learn and change. You can't take the experience and not change you, make it not change you. You got to make it change you for the better, not for the worse. And which means there are apologies to be given at times. There are changes to be made at times. It depends, but I certainly think that he's got to adjust certain things. I'll say that.
All right, Chris, what do you make of this Ryan Garcia situation, and what needs to be done if you were advising him?
Well, I'm glad you guys spoke a lot, because I'm tired of talking about this kid. But let's put it to bed now that all that wild behavior leading up to the Haney fight was some kind of master plan, by a mastermind to get underneath, Haney's skin. This kid is off the wall for a reason, and it's not by design. It seems to be he's just getting, wilder and wilder, and he's a loose cannon at this point. And he's starting to pay for it. 3 strikes and you're out. I mean, first was the Peds. Yep. Then was the vandalism in L.A., and now you got this, abhorrent behavior, which is not going to be accepted by literally anybody. So, yeah, Ryan needs to, I think you said it best, champion, Sean, just need to slow down. He needs to slow down. Things are going too fast, and he's losing control of the ship. So I hope he gets the help that he needs, but this kind of stuff it can't happen. This is not acceptable at all.
And I have a feeling.
If Ryan is biblical, I just looked up the scripture. It's Colossians 4:6. As Ryan says, he's a Christian, so that's the one I'm talking about.
Well, with Ryan Garcia, never a dull moment. We'll see what happens there and how this WBC expulsion will affect his boxing career. And he said he's going to rehab, but seeing is believing. We can't always take Ryan Garcia at his word. Time for a quick break here in Deep Waters. Coming up, we'll talk Shakur Stevenson. He has a big fight coming up this weekend.
Wednesday night fights. Don't miss the next Wednesday night fights, July 10th. Nicholas Flores takes on Alfredo Escarcega Jr. Wednesday night fights.
It should be a good one. Wednesday night fights, main event, Puerto Rico against the United States. You definitely don't want to miss it. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. All right, let's talk Shakur Stevenson. He has a big fight coming up this weekend, defending his WBC lightweight belt against Artem Harutunian. But in the pre-fight press conference, his mind was on the Tank Davis fight, saying that might be the end goal for him to get that fight against Tank Davis. All right, Sean, assuming he beats Artem, is that the end goal for him, the right end goal for him, that Tank Davis fight?
Yeah, it's the fight that everybody wants. I think it's the most on-time fight for both guys right now. I think maybe, if anything, we could say Shakur may need maybe one more fight before he gets in the ring with Tank. But I feel like, Shakur Stevenson pretty much is who he is and who he's gonna be as a fighter. Please, I would love for you guys to tell me if I'm right, if I'm wrong. But I feel like his reaction time is exactly where it's gonna be. His speed, maybe his power may increase, but just him as an overall fighter, I don't know if there's any more room for him to have more fights to improve on anything that he may not have seen before he gets in the ring with Tank Davis. I think now is the best time. I know everybody's talking about Lomachenko and Tank Davis. That fight, I think, is past its time. We have a Lomachenko who, even though he's got like maybe 20 pro fights or something like that, he has an extensive amateur background that's put some mileage on him. He's just not the fighter he was 5 years ago when everybody first started talking about Loma and Tank fighting. But Tank wasn't who he was 5 years ago. Tank had room to improve, and Tank has made those improvements. I think both guys are where they're at now, and I think it's time. I know that Shakur is going to look past this guy. I think he's got everything that it takes to beat Artem, and I expect him to, and I expect him to look good doing it, because this guy has the right kind of style that will make Shakur look good. And I think after that, Shakur will more than likely say, if it ain't Tank, I don't want anything out there. Whether or not that happens, we'll see. But I think it's next for him.
Paulie, what do you make of Shakur Stevenson talking about Tank Davis as the end goal?
Yeah, I think that, that's the goal that it should be for any champion in any weight class. You want to take on the best. Shakur Stevenson has consistently desired to fight the best, get in the ring with the best, called out the best. And all he's been doing, all that's happened has been he's been criticized for it. While at the other end of it, these other guys have not been chasing Shakur Stevenson, who is the biggest threat in the weight class. For me, he's the best fighter in the weight class. And that's with all the respect to Tank Davis. I'd love to see that fight. I absolutely love to see that fight. I think Sean the Champ made a great point where he said, the time for it is right now. It's marinated perfectly right now. They are at their best right now. I hope that we get to see it soon. But I don't mind Shakur mentioning Davis's name. Davis, though, I think he moves a bit strategically outside the ring more so than inside the ring. And inside the ring, he's very strategic. But if you notice, he wasn't mentioning Lomachenko before. After Lomachenko's 37, he's mentioning him. Shakur Stevenson doesn't mention him at all. I'd love for the Shakur Stevenson and Davis fight. That's really the one to make for the weight. But we'll see if they're able to do it.
All right, Chris, what do you make of Shakur Stevenson's comments there regarding Tank and the angle and all that?
Well, listen, of course, that's the fight that we all want. The champs just put it, obviously in obvious terms. But I think he's got to focus on the guy in front of him. And it's not about winning. Yeah, we all think he's going to win. We all assume he's going to win this fight. But looking good matters. It's not about winning or losing this weekend. It's about how good he can look. I saw an interaction between the two of them at the weigh-in earlier where Artem was saying, he's like, everybody wants you to lose, man. And he goes, yeah, I know. And Shakur's like, I know. But he's like, but listen, he's like, I'm coming for you. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He goes, I'm going right there. And he's pointing at his abs. He's like, I hope you did your sit-ups. I feel like Shakur is going to go out there and try to get Artem out of there. And I think that would be a really big statement. If he's able to stop him, where Frank Martin did not. Frank Martin actually struggled late with Artem. He's a tough guy. He's not a walkover. But as you said, Sean, he's the kind of guy stylistically that can really make Shakur look good. And I think Shakur should take this opportunity to make a statement for the rest of the lightweights, because he's in a position right now where that big fight, that mega fight, that end goal type fight with Tank Davis is within reach.
Sean, let me ask you this about the lightweight. You have the two Ukrainians, Lomachenko's the IBF champion, Berinchik the WBO champion. Should maybe Tank and Shakur fight the Ukrainians first, get those belts, assuming they win, and then fight each other? Or should the next fight for Shakur be Tank?
I mean, that sounds like a cool idea, It just, boxing doesn't always work that way. And I know the thing that boxing always does is boxing always protects the investment. And right now, Tank and who knows who he's with. I don't even understand the situation going on with him right now and his promotional team and all that kind of stuff. But they'll protect him, and I don't mean that from a standpoint of keeping him away from certain fighters, but just positioning him, like Paulie said, always for success. That's what you want to do with anybody, anything that you got going on. But I think with boxing, sometimes they go a little further than they need to in terms of trying to set someone up for success. We saw the fight with Frank Martin. I thought that fight was going to go different than it went. I thought Frank was much stronger mentally, and it was a quick mental breakdown. It took rounds, but it was when he broke mentally, there was no fight at all in Frank Martin. Tank doesn't need to be in the ring with guys like that anymore. Tank needs to be in the ring with somebody like Shakur, who has both the skill, the heart, the ferociousness, the list goes on. They need to fight each other. I'm not saying Loma and Berinchik don't have that, but stop protecting the investment. Go for it right now, and then you go back after those guys if there's nothing else out there for you.
Yeah, Paulie, what do you make of that scenario I put out there? And essentially eliminating the Ukrainians, getting those belts, and then those two having a super mega fight to make it undisputed at 135.
Yeah, essentially that's what you want in any weight class, right? All the champions to fight each other, and you create an undisputed champion. I mean, that's why we've had these World Boxing Super Series, that when they created the undisputed champions, you would essentially ask that of any weight class. Make the champions fight each other, unify it as one, and then, we'll see how long that champion sticks around as one champion. But it's the problem we have with doing that too is as soon as the guy unifies, we just expect him to move up in weight. Not we, because I am going to, disclaimer, I have no part of that at all. I am totally against all that kind of garbage that the media pushes and the networks push. But I do love unifications. I do love trying to figure out who the best in the weight class is for sure. And I'd love to see that if these champions would take each other on. Who would win? Of course, you can't really script it, as Sean said. But, I think Lomachenko at his age, he is a live guy, but he's still a little bit advanced. So, yeah, I mean, you would probably favor Tank and Shakur to come out of a unification if those guys fought each other.
Yeah, Chris, what do you make of that scenario? How do you think it might play out?
Well, I mean, it seems like they're pretty deep in discussions for a Tank Davis and Lomachenko fight, so that would be one unification there. And then if Shakur were to stay with Top Rank, which we don't know, that deal's hasn't been announced yet in terms of where he's going to be moving to next, or if he's going to be staying. You know, there's Baranchyk, which is a Top Rank fighter as well. That fight seems like it would be easy to make, a Shakur Baranchyk, if Shakur stays with Top Rank. But again, we don't really know. So then you got basically on both sides of the aisle, you've got unified two unified fighters with the 4-belt split between two guys, and then they fight each other for an ultimate unification. And we do live in the age of unifications. We're seeing them more and more lately. And unfortunately, that leaves a guy like Zepeda out to dry, which these guys don't really have a reason to fight him. One, he's on a different promotional side, and two, he doesn't have a belt. So if these guys are just vying for belts and trying to fight each other, it really does leave Zepeda out.
All right, we're going to talk about El Camarón, William Zepeda, here on the other side on Deep Waters. Thank you for joining us here on Deep Waters on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. William Zepeda, big fight this weekend. Shakur Stevenson, big fight this weekend. If you're looking to make some money on those two bouts, you might want to listen to Jim Rodriguez on the better side.
Well, another big weekend of fights coming up and another chance to cash those tickets here on the better side, brought to you by our buddies at sportsbetting.ag. Let's start in Newark. This fight is on Saturday night. It's the hometown kid, Shakur Stevenson, coming back to the Prudential Center to take on Artem Harutyunyan for Stevenson's WBC Lightweight Championship. And if you go to sportsbetting.ag, well, Shakur a monster favorite, minus 5,000, while Harutyunyan is plus 1,600. No interest there. So what's the better side of this? Listen, we all have that ugly, terrible taste in our mouth from Shakur's last fight against Edwin De Los Santos. He needs to show out. His last fight on his top-ranked contract, maybe a free agent, got to get that big money deal, maybe against Tank Davis. So he wants to show out. But Shakur, this is undeniable. 1 stoppage in his last 6 fights, 2 in his last 9. He just doesn't have that KO power. Meanwhile, Harutyunyan, man, he's a gamer. 5 of his last 7 fights have gone the distance. So what's the better side of this? What about Shakur by decision at plus money at sportsbetting.ag? And another little pizza and beer money bet, just to kind of hedge it. I wouldn't put a lot on it, but if you got that feeling that Shakur's going to show out, what about Shakur by stoppage in rounds 10 through 12? Not a lot of money on it, but plus 350. That is very intriguing to me. Now, another fight that's going on this weekend across the country in Ontario, California, it's William Zepeda, the #1 contender by all the sanctioning bodies. His nickname is El Camarón, might be the unicorn considering he's ranked #1 by all the sanctioning bodies. He takes on Giovanni Cabrera, and Zepeda minus 2,000 favorite on the money line. Cabrera is at plus 1,000. No interest there. And for El Camarón, remember, this is his last fight until he gets a big title shot, maybe against Tank, maybe against Shakur. Cabrera has been a gamer. 5 straight fights have gone the distance, including one against Pitbull Cruz where he lost in a split decision. For Zepeda, how do we approach this? I know he's got 30-0 and he's 26 knockouts, but I think Cabrera is going to give him a fight. So I say Zepeda by decision. That's plus money at plus 180 at sportsbetting.ag. And if it goes to the scorecards, that means the fight goes the distance, and I love it, at plus 160. I'm Jim Rodriguez. It's the better side. Let's go make that money.
I think I might put my money on Shakur and Zepeda by decision there. We'll see what happens there. That's going to be interesting. Camarón against El Gallo Cabrera. That fight taking place on Saturday. Both lightweights. And Cabrera, Zepeda, 1 year younger, but what a record. 30-0, 26 knockouts. And Cabrera certainly will not be an easy fight for Camarón Zepeda, who maybe might get caught looking ahead there to some bigger fights, as Jim mentioned, against maybe Tank or Shakur. We'll see what happens this weekend. All right, Chris, let's keep the discussion going about William Zepeda. Has that big fight against Giovanni Cabrera. How important is he to not only win, but to look good so that he can entice either Shakur or Tank to fight him? Yeah,
I mean, Cabrera's the kind of guy, he's tricky. You know, he's a bit of a spoiler. He made Isaac Cruz look kind of ordinary when they fought by going the distance. He showed a fantastic chin. He was like a rubber band in there the way when he was getting hit by by Cruz, who is normally a big knockout puncher. So he was able to take those shots, glass the distance, and I think one of the judges actually had him winning the fight. It was a majority decision or something like that, or a split decision rather. But yeah, no, this is a big fight for William Zepeda to go out there and use Cabrera as a bit of a litmus test. If he can go out there and stop Cabrera, where Isaac Cruz did not, that's a massive, massive statement for his positioning in the 135-pound division. Also, if he goes out there and looks a little ho-hum and ordinary, it might be easier to get some of these fights because he is a very dangerous guy, as you mentioned, of 30-0 with 26 KOs. He's got an excellent-looking record. If he goes out there and doesn't perform and look fantastic, that also might help him in terms of getting fights in the future because it wouldn't be the first time that a poor performance led to a big fight for a specific fighter, especially a dangerous guy. But either way, I'm a big fan of the way William Zepeda fights. He's an all-action guy, two-fisted, has an incredible, incredible gas tank, deep battery, and has good punching power with both hands. He likes to put a hurt on his guys. And in terms of entertainment value, I mean, I think he's one of the most exciting fighters of the world today. Yeah,
Paulie, what do you make of Zepeda having to put on a show there to entice Tank or Shakur to fight him next, assuming that Shakur beats Artem this weekend?
I think he's got to put on a show to a degree. If he's too dangerous, I think guys may shy away from him. You know, he's not with the most powerful promoter. He's got a pretty good promoter in that they have the DAZN dates. But let's face it, Tank is at PBC, Amazon, and Shakur Stevenson is at with Top Rank ESPN. So Zepeda being at DAZN, if you're going to attract those cross network rivalries, those cross network fights, and those cross network cross promotional fights, you want to look good, but you want to look beatable enough, you know, not too dangerous. I think, though, at this point, you can't really overthink it. If you're Zepeda, you got to look the best you can look. You're fighting a guy who's been really hard to look good against, been really difficult to look good against, and it's been very, very tricky. Cabrera, it not only can make you look bad, he can beat you if you're not careful. So I think this fight against Cabrera will give us a long way, a big look into what we're going to find out about Zepeda. How real is he?
All right, Sean, the question's to you. How important is he that he looks good to entice either Tank or Shakur?
Yeah, I'm going to go the opposite way. Keep doing what you're doing. Look great. Crush this kid if you can. Keep the gas tank going. Look like you've always looked. It gives me sentiments of David Benavidez. David is where he is now because of fans calling him a monster, not because of the boxing world calling him monsters, not because of promoters and managers calling him monsters. He has the reputation that he has now because the boxing world has said this is who he is. That's what Cameron needs to do. He needs to continue being who he is and allow the boxing world to speak for itself. The boxing world, the business of boxing is still going to move. It's the way it's going to move. Him looking lackluster, him looking somewhat beatable ain't going to change what the business is going to do. I think the business is going to continue to look over him because he doesn't have the name. The same way in a lot of ways, Canelo continues to look over David Benavidez because he doesn't have the name, the risk to reward. So that's what Cameron's playing with. Keep being fire in there, man. Keep doing what you're doing and let the fans say, hey, this is the fight we want, and hopefully it gets done that way. The more people talk about him, the more then I think Top Rank, PBC will look and say, well, he has recognition now. We got to take this fight. But right now, it ain't happening, so just keep doing what you're doing.
All right, Zepeda certainly has to come through against Giovanni Cabrera. All right, time for a quick break on Deep Waters. We'll continue the boxing discussion here on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. Welcome back to Deep Waters. Danny Jacobs returns to the ring after a 2.5-year absence. He'll be taking on Shane Mosley Jr. in Anaheim. And so, Sean, I want to pose the question, what does this mean for both fighters, especially Jacobs, who's been out for such a long time?
Yeah, I'm curious to see how he's truly gonna look. You know, right now, Andre Rozier and Daniel Jacobs, they've been saying all the right things and, you know, sounding the way that they're supposed to sound. Sounds to me like the way they prepared for this was as a 36, 37-year-old should for a fight against Shane Mosley Jr. But when you take a look at his last fight against John Ryder and how flat he looked, I feel like once you get there, I'm not sure there's anything that can get you away from that. And if we remember, he also had a really bad fight against Gabe Rosado as well, where he was extremely flat. So it's like you've shown us like who you are now. I'm really curious to see if that is indeed who he's become as a fighter. Nonetheless, the fact that he's wanted to get back in the ring. I know Jacobs personally. There wasn't anything that forced him back into the ring. This is 100% his decision, and they say that they're trying to solidify themselves for the Hall of Fame. So I'm excited to see what that looks like for him. I'm not exactly sure right now, but he's got a guy in front of him, Shane Mosley, who's shown that he has holes. The number one thing that Shane has shown, though, is that he has heart. So I think that they're really using this as a measuring stick to see where, of course, Danny is now, where he could possibly end up. I'm excited to see him back, and I'm excited to see what Shane does as well. Shane sounds really positive and like he's gonna go out there and win this fight as well. So I think it goes two ways. Either this is a flat performance from both guys, or it's light them up for both guys. Either way, hopefully, I hope it's light them up for both guys and they really get the ring warm for the main event.
Yeah, this is going to take place on the undercard of the Jorge Masvidal-Nate Diaz crossover boxing matches, we'll put it that way. All right, Chris, what do you make of Danny Jacobs and his fight against Shane Mosley Jr.?
You know, Jacobs has come out and said this isn't about money. This is about legacy. So, you know, like the champ said, Sean, about, you know, the Hall of Fame. Is beating Shane Mosley Jr. going to get you into the Hall of Fame? Probably not. This is probably going to be a multiple-step process if that's really what the goal is. But also, it's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to beat Shane Mosley Jr. because Shane Mosley Jr. has been looking good lately. He's found his momentum. It took him a little bit, you know, it took some early losses. He's never been stopped. But it seems like lately he's kind of found his footing. It's really going to depend on how much Danny Jacobs has left in the tank. Listen, at his best, Shane Mosley Jr. doesn't stand a chance against Daniel Jacobs. But, you know, a 36, 37-year-old Daniel Jacobs who's been out of the ring for 2.5 years and wasn't all that busy before that. Also, you know, it can leave some opportunities for Shane to pull off the upset. But really, it's going to depend on which version of Daniel Jacobs shows up. And listen, we'd all love to see a classic vintage Miracle Man performance because he's a very, very exciting and talented fighter for sure. But in terms of, you know, what's next for the Hall of Fame, it's probably going to have to take more than just this win to solidify that positioning.
All right, yeah, Shane Mosley Jr. has won his last 4 fights, 8 of his last 9, so he's fighting very well. Yeah.
On a roll.
Paulie, what do you make of this fight between Daniel Jacobs and Shane Mosley Jr.?
I don't think it's about Danny Jacobs at all, actually. I think the promotion is probably more angling towards seeing what Shane Mosley Jr. is going to do. Like Champ Sean said, Danny Jacobs has kind of been fizzling out a little bit, but Shane Jr., as the champ Chris said, has been sort of on a bit of momentum lately, you know, got the win over Gabe Rosado and has some decent wins. I think it's more so about his climb and to see if he can get that little next rung up. He beat a faded Gabe Rosado. Can he beat a faded Danny Jacobs and then move into a little bit more contender status? He's kind of made his name off of his father, obviously, a little bit, but also he's been a sort of a fringe contender. He's been lacking that huge key victory against a major player in his prime. He's gotten some names on his record and resume, the bit faded. He's kind of hung around there again on a fringe level. Danny Jacobs is himself fading, but he's not quite as faded as some of the other wins over guys that Shane, or name guys that Shane may have beaten, like a Quigley or a Rosado even. A win over Jacobs, even a little bit of a faded Jacobs, is still the biggest name on Shane Jr.'s ledger if he's able to get the win. And I think it would be another step climbing towards that of trying to finally live up to some of the expectation that is heaped upon you when you're the son of a legendary champion.
Yeah, this weekend has got some great fights between Shakur and then obviously Danny Jacobs and Camarón Cepeda as well. All right, champions, thank you very much for your time. We always appreciate your insights here on Deep Waters. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and download the app as well. That does it for Deep Waters here on ProBox TV, your boxing channel.